All right, so let's begin again. So, what is emotional resilience and emotional regulation in the first place?
So, emotional regulation is basically the ability to not freak out at every little thing. Emotional resilience is what makes you not crumble when life is throwing emotional bricks at you. One is about staying calm in the storm, the other is about still standing when the storm's done. Fair enough so far?
Yes, that makes sense. Yes.
Cool. Now, before we dive in, let me flip this. When do you feel like your emotional house party gets out of control? Because that'll tell me where we need to fix the metaphorical plumbing.
Well, I'm just trying to understand the emotions, the emotional regulation, and the emotional resilience from a mechanistic standpoint, where we can actually see how it's developed from the beginning, from childhood to adulthood, and how people eventually, let's say, how people turn from a child that naturally is not as regulated, then they become regulated, and then how a child can be a child with no regulation or resilience and then grows up to still be an adult with no emotional regulation and resilience. So
All right.
my question here would be, developmentally, how does one arrive to become emotional resilient and regulated?
Think of it like building a weird emotional muscle. Early on, you're basically a tiny human sponge soaking up how the big people around you react. If they flip out at every spilled juice box, you might pick up some of that drama. But if you're lucky enough to see adults who breathe through their chaos, that's your blueprint. As you grow, the brain's prefrontal cortex gets better at putting the brakes on your inner drama queen. If it doesn't, well, that's where we get emotionally erratic adults. So it's a mix of brain wiring, what you see around you, and how you practice being less reactive. Not magic, just a lot of repetition.
All right, so let's put these repetitions in that manner where we can actually understand those. So where are those aspects happening? Like we have the child that is practicing these aspects, and then we have an adult that became good and an adult that became bad. So then, give me an example for each side of the equation.
All right, picture one kid, they get frustrated, but some adult says, hey, let's name what you're feeling. Or let's take a breath before we smash the toy. Repeat that a few thousand times, and boom, they get good at checking themselves. Now take another kid, every time they lose it, no one steps in, or worse, everyone loses it with them. So they get to adulthood, and every small inconvenience is a personal apocalypse. Basically, one grows up with training wheels for their emotions, the other, riding downhill with no brakes.
So what is the emotion, their relationship with the emotions look like? Let's say we have access to the internal dialogue that is happening, and we have the healthy version of it where they are regulated and resilient, and we have the unhealthy aspect where they don't have that. What would their internal dialogue be while it is happening? You can even put it in a particular example where something's happening to them.
All right, let's say both are stuck in traffic. The regulated, resilient one is thinking, okay, this sucks, but no one's dying. I'll breathe, maybe listen to something. The unregulated one? I'm cursed, the universe hates me, and if one more car cuts me off, I'll explode. One's having a conversation, the other's having an emotional hostage situation.
So basically, their dialogue, it's either exacerbating their little perspective of what's going on, or it's putting them at ease. Right? That's what it seems like at the moment, at least.
You got it. It's either pouring gasoline on the fire or grabbing a bucket of water. The dialogue either makes the moment bigger or shrinks it down to something manageable. So, yeah, your internal narrator is either your hype man or your bouncer.
So as a kid, you're basically your emotional regulation and your emotional resilience is tied to the adults around you. So they either make you or break you in that aspect, because you're either gonna learn to regulate from them, or you're gonna learn to just be unregulated from them, because you have to adapt to what's happening. And if they don't allow you to adapt properly, you're gonna grow up to not have the regulation and install that module in your brain where you can actually deal with the emotions properly.
Bingo. The adults are like your first software developers, and if they've got buggy code, you inherit some messy emotional programming. But the good news is, once you're older, you can update the system yourself. Takes work, but hey, we're all debugging at some point.
So what will be the most important aspect here to make sure somebody actually becomes emotional regulated in the first place? Or you can tie both emotional regulated and resilience in the same time, but you could just describe one at a time.
For regulation, it's about building that pause button. You train catching yourself, naming the emotion, and not letting it hijack the whole show. For resilience, it's the ability to reframe setbacks. If you can consistently say, I'll get through this, you bounce back. Basically, it's practice. The brain's a drama queen by default. Your job is teaching it better lines.
So here we're basically tying it back to where we were talking about how you're just not letting the emotion control you instead of just trying to control the emotion itself.
Exactly. It's not about slamming a lid on emotions. It's more like letting them exist, but not letting them drive the bus into a wall. You get to hold the steering wheel.
Okay, so let's say we're growing up as a person, right? And you're an adult, and then you people say that you're resilient, and they feel like you're emotionally resilient and emotionally regulated. But you as a skeptical person are wondering, is that the case? Where in that emotional resilience and regulation, where does that could look like to somebody from the outside perspective that you are that way, and where could it be that you just seem that way, where you're actually not emotionally resilient and regulated, and they just think that way because of the perception that they have of you? Where's the, like, why does sometimes you can look regulated and you can look resilient emotionally, but maybe you're not, and then when it is that actually the case that you are that way?
Oh, that's the fun part. You can fake it pretty well. On the outside, you might seem calm. Maybe you just don't show much. But inside, you're secretly a dumpster fire. True regulation is when you're actually calm inside. The difference, if life throws you a real curveball, a fake calm person cracks fast. A truly resilient person might actually feel the hit, but they recalibrate quickly. One is a performance, and the other is an actual internal skill.
So with the resilience aspect, you're feeling the emotion just like anybody else, but then you come back to baseline quicker.
Exactly. You still get knocked off balance like the rest of us, but instead of lying face down for a week, you dust off and get back to center faster. It's less never fall and more how fast do I stand up.
And then with the emotional regulation, where could that seem to somebody that you're emotionally regulated, but then you're actually not?
Oh, that's when you look chill, but inside you're holding on by a thread. Maybe you've perfected the art of poker face. But if something small goes wrong, you spiral. So from the outside, you seem calm, but it's a house of cards. Real regulation is when you feel as calm as you look.
If we're talking about just the emotions itself, right? Okay, could you lie to yourself, basically, and be like, oh, I am emotionally regulated and resilient, while you're not?
Oh, absolutely. Self-delusion is a hobby for all of us. You can tell yourself, I'm fine, while your eye's twitching. The real clue is, can you feel the emotion, stay aware of it, and not get dragged under? If you're avoiding your feelings or numbing them out, you're not regulated, you're just dodging.
So how can somebody tell the difference between being numb to the feeling or avoiding the feeling, and somebody who is actually feeling the feeling and acknowledging it without getting dragged by the feeling?
Alright, the test is simple. If you're numb or avoiding, you probably don't even know what you're feeling. If you're regulated, you can name it, like I'm frustrated, I'm anxious, and you still feel it, but you don't have to act on it. If you're dodging, you're basically an emotional ostrich. If you're feeling it and still functioning, you're in charge.
So what's the best perspective to take here? Or how can you check yourself to see that if you're numbing yourself out, or if you're actually feeling the feelings and just going about it in a healthy manner. Because sometimes you can tell yourself, hey, I'm feeling the feeling, but then you're really just rationalizing whatever you're going on. You're making it pure logic and that way avoiding it. But it could seem to you like you're actually feeling these feelings.
Alright, the difference is in the discomfort. If you're really feeling it, it's uncomfortable. You don't just intellectualize it away. So check in with your body. Are you tense? Are you feeling something in your chest, stomach, wherever? If you're just up in your head saying, I think I'm fine, you're probably dodging. If you're sitting with the discomfort and still functioning, that's the real deal.
So the healthy aspect of it is just actually being with the feeling, more than likely acknowledging the feeling, and being okay with having the feeling regardless of whatever it makes you uncomfortable or something, some bad feeling or good feeling, you're just there.
Exactly. You're not fighting the feeling off or sugarcoating it. You're just letting it hang out and doing what you need to do anyway. That's how you know you're not faking it.
So what are some things that people might see as, oh, I'm regulating my feelings and I am emotionally resilient, when in truth those are not the things that are actually happening, but people might perceive it either by the outside world or internally that's what's happening even though it's not.
Oh, classic ones, bottling everything up and calling it calm. Or distracting yourself constantly, always busy so you never have to sit with a feeling. Some people think being tough is shutting down emotions entirely. In reality, it's not about showing no emotion. It's about showing up for yourself when you feel it, not running from it or pretending it's not there.
So let's say somebody likes to deal with their emotions privately, for example. And then when people ask them about their emotions, they just calmly talk about them without getting the emotional activation out of it. So let's say somebody's asking about particular, like, hey, how are you feeling? And then they're like calmly talking about how they feel jealous the other day or they felt sad or something like that. Is that a healthy perspective of doing it, or where can that be healthy and where can that be unhealthy? That'll be the better question there.
Alright, the healthy version is when you can calmly talk about it because you've already felt it and processed it. You didn't avoid it, you just dealt with it on your own time and now you're stable. The unhealthy side is if you're just intellectualizing, talking feelings without ever letting yourself actually experience them. If you never let the emotion hit you, you're just narrating a story you never read.
So what does intellectualizing the feelings here look like?
It's when you dissect them like you're talking about someone else's emotions. You say, I was angry because X and Y. But you never actually sat with that anger. It's like reading a recipe instead of cooking. You analyze it, but you don't actually let yourself taste it.
Okay, so when is it a good thing to basically talk to people about your emotions, and when is it not a good thing to talk about your emotions to other people?
It's good when you're sharing to connect or process, when you've felt it and you just want to be real. It's not so great when you're using others to avoid feeling it alone, or when you dump without any reflection. Sharing's healthy if it's honest, but not if it's a way to dodge sitting with yourself.
So when you're using somebody else to help you, not to help you, but to have them regulate your emotions and feelings, that's when it's a bad thing.
Exactly. If you're outsourcing your emotional regulation, you're not building your own muscle. They won't always be there, so it's fine to share, but you gotta be able to hold your own emotional weight when the audience leaves.
And when you're using them to connect, that's when you're actually you're like, oh yeah, I processed the feeling, and then yeah, I was feeling like this the other day, and then you're calmly just letting them know. But sometimes people, since you're not acting out emotionally, they almost view you as you don't those feelings aren't real because you're so calm about talking about your feelings.
Yeah, some folks think if you're not sobbing, you didn't feel it. But real regulation doesn't mean you never felt it. It means you did. You handled it, and now you can talk about it without losing your cool. If they don't get it, well, that's their emotional homework, not yours.
Also, at that point, it's basically it's their job to be, yeah, okay. So they were feeling the feelings, and now they're regulated to the point that they can talk about their feelings in a calm manner.
Exactly. You did your job. You rode the emotional roller coaster and got off without screaming. If they can't picture that, it's their ride to figure out, not yours.
All right, so let's say somebody becomes a full-fledged adult, right? And now they are realizing that they basically they weren't really healthy about the emotional regulation and resilience, and they kind of thought they were, but then they came to realize that they were more intellectualizing, avoiding, or numbing out the emotions that they were having. What are the things that they must do now to actually become this healthy version of emotional resilience and regulation?
Well, first step, they stop pretending. They start paying attention to what they actually feel in real time, uncomfortable as it is. Name it, sit with it, and don't try to solve it like a math problem. Then practice small moments of feeling something, regulating, and bouncing back. Rinse and repeat. It's a muscle they've got to build, and the only way out is straight through it.
So at this point, they're basically trying to build the module in their brain to allow them to become introspective about the actual emotions and feelings without them needing to numb out, avoid, or intellectualize, and actually sit with the emotion without breaking.
Exactly. They're installing the emotional software updates they missed. It's about letting the feelings show up, hanging out with them long enough to understand them, and then moving on. No shortcuts, just intentional reps until it feels natural.
What if somebody is it's like since somebody didn't get this connection with somebody when they were growing up, like a parent, for example, and then when somebody connects with them in a manner where it actually makes them feel these emotions, and they feel emotionally overwhelmed to the point that they well, at the moment they don't understand the use of the emotions because they grew up without being taught the manner of how to understand the emotions. Their relationship with their emotions, it's either just not at all there, or maybe it's just not a good one. What can they actually do to make sure that the emotions don't become as overwhelming to them, so that they can actually sit with the emotion and be comfortable and actually be able to engage there and allow the emotion to go through them without them having to like break down, cry, and all this situation? And I'm not saying here crying is a bad thing. I'm just, what if they don't wanna what if they don't wanna have to cry every time that they feel something that feels overwhelming, or something that they basically never had while they were growing up, because or whatever environment they were in, and now when they experience the environment that is a healthy aspect of it, they feel an overwhelming sense of emotions.
Well, first they need to cut themselves some slack. Overwhelm is normal if it's unfamiliar territory. But to not drown in it, they can go in increments. Sort of like dipping toes in, not diving headfirst. Notice the emotion, take breaks if it's too much, and remind themselves it's just a wave. It passes. Breathing helps. And over time, the waves feel less like tsunamis and more like ripples. Practice is key. And crying? Not a failure, just a release valve when needed. But they'll get stronger each time.
So at that point, it's just about allowing themselves to feel what they're feeling without having to stop it or break it.
Exactly. It's about letting it flow without panicking, like watching a storm roll through. You don't have to stop the rain, you just need to know you're not going to get swept away.
So what is something that I probably should have asked you that I haven't asked you about these emotions aspects, where we're talking about developing the emotions in a healthy manner?
Well, you could have asked, what happens when you mess up? Because you will. And the answer is, big deal. Emotional regulation isn't perfection. It's noticing when you're off track, getting curious, and trying again. So you don't need to nail it every time, you just need to keep showing up.
I heard about how you need some type of empathy towards yourself, especially if you didn't get it when you were growing up. and you need some self-compassion to understand what possibly you didn't get taught while you were growing up, and now you have to develop it as an adult. So now you need to empathize with yourself and have self-compassion to the point that yes, you didn't get this development, healthy development of your emotions while you were growing up, but now you have to build the module into yourself to actually get from the unhealthy version to the healthy version.
You nailed it. If you're rebuilding, you gotta give yourself the same patience you give a friend learning something new. Self-compassion isn't fluff. It's the buffer that keeps you from giving up when you hit emotional speed bumps. Without it, you're just trying to rewire yourself with no instruction manual.
So this all basically makes sense in the manner that it feels like if you grew up in a healthy family situation, you would more than likely end up as a person with a healthy regulation aspect because they didn't teach you to avoid your emotions or numb them out of acceptance that they weren't gonna give you the aspects of seeing your emotions in a healthy manner. And then you have the person that basically acknowledges that their past environment didn't teach them these aspects, right? And now they have to install the module themselves. And then we basically come to the conclusion where the person is just basically just needs to do that themselves at this point because their environment didn't allow them to develop that as they were developing themselves. So now we have the aspects of the unhealthy version of the emotional resilience and regulation where you could lie to yourself and say that that's what's happening, but you're not doing that. And now we have the emotional healthy version of that where you can feel the emotions and be fine with the emotions without having to throw them away and say, I don't want to feel this and all this stuff. And now you get to utilize this and have a good relationship with your emotions instead of underutilizing them.
That's the gist. You go from being dragged by your emotions to actually working with them. You stop making them the enemy. They become part of the toolkit. Like, oh, I'm feeling something. Must be telling me something. And now you get to use them instead of being used by them. Simple, right? Well, simple-ish.
So if you could summarize everything that you learned from the research in a very scientific yet simple aspect where you could actually make it practical and make it useful for somebody. Could you do that right now?
Alright, simple. Emotional regulation is training your brain to pause before reacting. Emotional resilience is learning you can survive the emotional wave. You build both through practice. Name what you feel, let it be there, choose your response, and bounce back. Over time, the brain rewires, so you're not stuck. It's just intentional reps until it's muscle memory.
All right, sounds good. So I'm sure this would probably help somebody understand what is happening with their emotions and what they can do about it when they feel like they're stuck emotionally or they're utilizing the emotions in an unhealthy manner, and then maybe they can switch from unhealthy to healthy.
Exactly. And honestly, if someone's at that point where they're even asking those questions, that means they've got a shot at shifting it. It's all just a set of skills, and no one's locked out of learning them.
All right, sounds good. Thank you for the information, and we'll move to another conversation at some point. And from this conversation that we had here, what will be another good conversation to have after that will help you understand more about your mind, yourself, and all these aspects?
I'd say next time we flip it and talk about purpose. Once you've got emotional regulation down, what do you do with it? What actually gives you direction so you're not just a calm person staring at a wall? That's where we get to the fun part. What drives you?
All right, sounds good. We'll have that conversation next time.
I'm looking forward to it. You bring the questions, I'll bring the thoughtful sarcasm. We'll keep it interesting.